For tonight's webinar, we are honored to have as a guest speaker Reginald Andre from our ARK Solvers. So I'm going to just go ahead and actually switch over the slide so you guys see a little bit of a bio on Mr. Andre. He's CEO of RAK Solvers, Inc. And Reginald's a graduate of Broward College, where he received his degree in business administration and in computer information tech. Great combo. In 2010, Reginald opened ARK Solvers, Inc., which is a managed service IT provider and IT solutions to businesses with 20 computers or more, serving businesses with 20 computers or more. As a recent graduate of Goldman Sachs 10,000 Small Business Program, Reginald and his team is set to become one of the prime IT companies here in the Miami-Dade metropolitan area. So Reginald is a member of a local chambers, SCORE Miami, Business Network International, treasurer of William H. Turner Tech Booster Program, which we've had many come out that are great from that magnet program from William Turner Tech. And he's also volunteers at schools and takes interest in assisting others, in any way to make it possible. So prior to getting started with the meeting, please note the following. This meeting is being recorded. Please be sure to mute your mic for Zoom etiquette, and please use the chat function for questions you may have. We'll unmute you for questions if needed. Once Reginald is done with his portion of the presentation, he's going to go ahead and take an FAQ, and then he's going to turn it over to us so that we can get to the rest of the topics that he didn't cover. But having said that, we are extremely excited to have Reginald on. And with that said, Reginald, you could take the floor, my friend.
Thank you, Ruben, for having me, and for everyone in the audience listening. Thank you so much for taking your time on this busy day to talk. So I see a lot of people are here, and if you want to, turn on the camera, let it be an interaction, and let me be able to see you, and we can see each other. So first off, wanted to kind of give you my story of how I got started. So by a show of hands, how many people remember the store CompUSA? Yep, all right, Ruben, I see you remember CompUSA. So I used to work at CompUSA, and this was back in 2002. And one day this guy comes in and he buys shopping cart after shopping cart after shopping cart full of items. And at the end of the sale, he said, who's gonna set this up for me? And for those of you that don't know what CompUSA is like a Best Buy. They sell computers, gadgets, and all sorts of just different technology. And CompUSA back then didn't have what the Best Buy has today, which is the Geek Squad, where someone would come to your home and set up everything. So the guy, he asked me, can you come set this up for me at my home? And I was like, yeah, no problem. At the time I was going to school to become an English teacher, and I always would just do some side work for my friends and family to set up the computers, the routers, and TV. So here I am, he gives me his address, and on Saturday morning, I go to his home. And I grew up in Miami Gardens. Anybody here from Miami Gardens? Put in the chat, Miami Gardens. Represent, all right. So here I am, Miami Gardens, and he gives me his address, and it says Miami Beach. And I'm first generation Haitian American. I had never been exposed to outside of Miami Gardens. So here I am, I remember going on the MacArthur Causeway, and I'm like, wow, look at the boats and the cruise ships and the girls. And I'm like, this is a different life. I've never seen anything outside of this. The palm trees, it was so beautiful. I was never exposed to that. And I go to his unit, he's on the 17th floor overlooking the marina. And I set up his computers, his routers, his TV. And one of his friends comes in and says, who set this up for you? And he's like, Andre did. And he's like, can you set my home up? Well, in the next 6 months, this guy is sending me friend after friend after friend, setting me up with to set up their computers and things like that. And one day he calls me, he says, Andre, all my friends are ecstatic about you. You're a hard worker, diligent, you show up on time. I didn't tell you this, but I'm a retired 41-year-old multi-millionaire. And I want to start a business with you. Now, at the time, I was going to school at Broward College to become an English teacher. I was an English major. And he says, I know you're going to school at Broward College. I know you're working at CompUSA. Slow that down a little and let's start a business together. Whatever they're making, whatever you're getting paid at CompUSA, I'm going to double it. and let's start a business. I was like, yeah, let's do it. You know, my mom said, yeah, this is the American dream. Let's do it. So we start the business. 9 years later, we are the kings of South Beach. We have over $1 million in revenue, in top line revenue. We have about 8 employees and everything is great. But I go to my boss one day and I says, you know, hey, everything is great, but there's one thing. My business card says, you know, vice president. My email signature says managing partner, but there's nothing actually in writing that says, you know, we're actually a partnership, that, you know, I actually have shares in the company. Can we get something in writing? Because I like that. And he says, yeah, no problem, Andre, give me 2 months and I'll go ahead and do that for you. 2 months later comes down and he asked me to come into his office and he asked me to close the door. He says, Andre, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna have to let you go. I'm like, what do you mean, let me go? We're partners. 18 hours a day, 7 days a week for 9 years. Here I am working at this company. And he shows me the door. And here I am in the garage, in the parking lot. And now this is 2009. And I'm like, what am I gonna do? I was making a lot of money, but I wasn't saving. It was 2009. It was rock and roll back then. And I have a mortgage at home. I have a 2-year-old son at home. And I'm like, what am I gonna do? And I remember that quote from Rocky that says, it's not how hard you get hit, it's how you get back up. And I said to myself, I can do this. I had a non-compete, so I couldn't go back after any of those clients. So I had to, with $100 in my pocket, start Arc Solvers. Fast forward 12 years later, we were actually, as you can see with the plaques back there, we were voted the top 10 fastest growing IT companies in South Florida 3 years in a row. We now have 9 employees and we're one of the best cybersecurity and IT managed service companies in South Florida. So I tell you all this because I don't know your story. I know we could have some younger people in, you know, their early 20s. We can have some people in the middle. We can have some people in the 40s and 50s. And just to encourage you that no matter what your story is, no matter if you got screwed, no matter if there was whatever happened in your life, there's still that opportunity to now come and look at different careers and different ways in your life to make yourself and to make your family better financially and for yourself. So this is why I'm so excited to talk to you guys, because when I heard about New Horizon and what they're doing and how they don't have to get that 4-year degree, which 4-year degrees is great, but you know, there's other options that you have, because as I'll be telling you, when I went back to school, it took me 12 years to get my 2-year degree. I was a C student. I wasn't the brightest person. So with technology, I really felt that love because I didn't have to do all those math classes and chemistry and all those things. So that's just kind of intro of myself. So I just wanted to start there, and Ruben will be ready for the next slide.
Beautiful.
All right, so we're gonna talk about why information technology. Why are careers in IT and cybersecurity growing and in high demand? Simple answer, Google. Google hacking Miami. Google cyber attacks Florida. You are going to see pages and pages and pages of different companies, both private, public, even the government is getting hacked. Unfortunately, companies, small business companies, larger companies, they are not in the forefront in protecting their computers. And this is why it's so important that you look into getting into IT and cybersecurity, because the demand is so high. In fact, the demand is so high, there's a negative unemployment rate, meaning that there's more demand than there's more people for the job. So you can get into cybersecurity and in IT, and you can get a job pretty fast, because there's companies, even in my company, we've been looking for certain positions for a long time because we're not able to find that qualified person. So I think especially when you look at the other industries, technology is not going anywhere. So that's why I so much believe in you know, everyone getting into cybersecurity and IT. So before you can get into cybersecurity, I want to talk about the foundations, because, there's, in IT, there's programming, there's, Azure, which is with Microsoft, there's AWS, which is Amazon. There's programming, there's a lot of things, but it's so important that you have the foundations, because how can you try to set up a server when you don't know what a hard drive is, or you don't know what a memory is? So it's so important that you look at that you start in the foundations, your A+, your network plus, your security plus, because people like me, business owners like me, we want to make sure that you have that foundation, because you're no good if you just jump into something very high level without knowing that foundation, because there's no foundation. It's gonna go down. So next point is cybersecurity will drive innovation, which will create more jobs in technology. And just kind of going back to that first point that I was making of why cybersecurity. So long time ago, 10, 15 years ago, adding memory to a computer, replacing upgrading an operating system, putting a computer together, which those demands are still there. But with cybersecurity, it created so much more demand. You have everything from penetration testing, the blue team, red team, which is kind of like an offense defense. With cybersecurity, you have email security, you have server security. So think of it as a onion, because with cybersecurity is that big onion, but there's so much different layers to it. So that way you have a lot of different options. Because if you're just, for example, going back to the foundations and doing the computer repair, well, there's not that much you can peel after that. But if you look at something like Microsoft and you see that they have the Office 365, which is your Word, Excel, PowerPoint, and you have that type of support. And then from there you look at email with emails with Office 365 again. Then you also have with Microsoft PowerShell, you have all these different things within Microsoft that you can do, SharePoint, Power BI. There's so much things within Microsoft. So that's why with cybersecurity, there's a lot of different options that you can do. Next thing is four-year college degree is not a must. As I told you in my story, I sucked at math. I sucked at science. It was not fun for me. Funny story, when I was trying to do my math 1033, which is kind of like an intermediate math, I basically flunked out 3 times at Broward College. I had to go to Miami-Dade College, and then I couldn't even pass the classes there. So when I started to look at the IT, I had done, the English and the speech and a lot of those classes, and it was just so much. And the point I want to make with the 4-year college degree, now don't get me wrong, 4-year college degrees is great, and that's going to even help you more in your career. But by getting one of these type of programs where you can get a certificate, I myself and I have other peers in the industry where if you have your certificates and you know what you're doing, that's all we care about. We don't need a 4-year degree. We have about 150 clients. I can't tell you one client that ever said, hey, let me see your degree. What school did you go to? That's just not a question that has been asked to me. And with IT, it's not even a regulated industry. So just like how back in CompUSA, I was just fixing computers for my friends and family. All I did was go to Kinko's and, back then Vistaprint, and just, print out the business cards and just gave them out. And that's how I started. And that's how the love of technology and how I got that love for technology, because I was just doing for friends and family. So, of course, in healthcare and in legal, obviously you have to go through different avenues and you have to have the degrees and take different tests and things like that. But with technology, a 4-year degree is not a must. And that's why I love the New Horizon programs, because if you are maybe in your mid-career, in your 40s and 50s, and you're looking to like, hey, I would love to be able to work from home and not have to schlep all the way to downtown every day. Technology, you can work remotely. We have, I mentioned, about 9 employees, and only 1 person goes to the office. I have 1 person in Jacksonville. I have 1 person in Hollywood, and just different areas. I even had 1 person in Buffalo, New York. and they were getting top dollars, and they were able to just sit in front of their computers, just like how we're doing now. So what does a day in the life of an IT professional look like? So first we'll talk about going back to the foundations. And usually with the foundations in technology, you're talking help desk. Either physically or remotely. Physically, you could have like a big corporation and you're going around, someone has a problem, they can't go on the internet, their phones are not working, whatever the case is, and you're going and you're troubleshooting and you're side by side with the end user. Then we have the remote side. That's where you're doing, you have the headset and you're doing ticket systems, where a ticket system is when someone calls and it's recorded and, you put what you did and, it's trackable and things like that. So that's mostly on the IT side. And, it could be anything. I can't print, my Outlook is going slow, my macros and my Excel spreadsheet is not working. So it could be a slew of different things as far as when it comes to, your typical help desk type of things. Then for cybersecurity, for me, that's the fun part, because now we're keeping bad guys out. And that is a cat and mouse game, because unfortunately, the bad guys is one step faster than the good guys. They already know what your antivirus is not going to catch. So now your job is to be looking at a screen and looking for different anomalies to say, you know what, Karen from HR, she never logs in at a Sunday at 3 in the morning, and all of a sudden she's logging in. Let me look into that. Or how could someone have their emails being logged on their phones in Miami, and all of a sudden on their Google account, they're showing up somewhere in China or showing up somewhere in Washington, DC. It's impossible that they can do both of those things at the same time. Let me look into that. Then, of course, you have with the Microsoft, you have the email security. You have fun things that you can do. For example, phishing, where you're trying to trick someone into clicking an email so that you can then say, hey, gotcha, next time this is what you should look for, because it only takes the bad guy one time to get into your system to do a lot of things. So, and then personally, and for my technicians, we have, like I mentioned, most of them are remote, and we do have some that go on site, and they love it because every day it's a new problem. Every day they're dealing with different users, and a lot of times when you're done, like I always say, when you're done, the customer is going to hug you. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I was working on a report and things like that, and it's a great gratitude, because you're essentially helping someone, whatever their business is, their nonprofit, whatever that industry is. You're helping them be productive, and you're helping the business be able to survive. Because outside of power, I think technology is the most important thing to a business when you're inside an office. So current demands and opportunities in information technology. As I mentioned before, the demand is great. We've had to basically find a recruiter because we couldn't find top local talent here in South Florida, and they found us someone in Buffalo, New York. That's how bad the market is. And I don't want to say it's a good market, because it's bad for us, because as an employer, we're having to obviously go out of state, so we're not helping our local community. And it's really bad. And like I said, the demand is great because the technology has just blown up so much, and not enough people are coming into the technology. And we'll go to the next slide. So here's some career advice. I've been doing this for 22 years now. If you take nothing away from this slide, this is, or the PowerPoint, this is the most important thing, because especially with technology, it is not what you know, it's who you know. That is so important, because we've had, for example, my last 6 hires, I put up on Job Board, Monster, LinkedIn, I put up the job descriptions and what I was looking for. But at the end of the day, it was someone who said, hey, I saw this, I know somebody, let me connect you with them. Because I rather deal with someone that's recommended to me than a stranger coming out the street. Next, So going back to build your network, just like how I gave you the example of how I was able to meet that guy at CompUSA and he gave me other connections. One of the ways we built the business was through his connections. Even in my business now, I do a lot of marketing on social media because I can't just sit back and just wait for the phone to ring. And same thing for you, especially if you're going to start off with IT. You need to talk with your family, your friends, and let them know what you're doing, because you never know if their company is hiring, and it's so much easier to get in that way. All right, so next is personality trumps skill set. I would hire someone who knows nothing about computers but has a great personality. My COO, I love her. She's been with me for 8 years, and if she's watching, I have no problem saying this. But when I originally hired her, she didn't even know how to do a command prompt or how to do a ping or, some of these technical things, log into a router. But her personality was like, oh my gosh, like it came from like the Marriott, as if you were going to a 5-star hotel. And what did I do? I said, okay, I'm going to train you. I love your personality. I know you're going to be great with our customers. And I hired her as a technician. 8 years later, she's the COO of our company, because I know that I can trust her with my customers. And if I go out on vacation or if I'm, whatever the case is, she's running the company. I have nothing to worry about. No longer are the days, the stereotype of IT professionals where they're in a server closet and they're not talking to anybody. That's gone. Servers for the physical servers and offices, all of that stuff is moving to the cloud. And yeah, 20 years ago, you probably never had to interact with someone and you could just sit in a room and just do your thing. But times have changed and there's so much more user action. And if you're working for a company like me, which is called an MSP, which is a managed service provider, so we provide IT and cybersecurity services to other businesses. My contract, 80% of it is on personality, because there's 100 other people, MSPs in South Florida, that can do exactly what I do, and probably can even do it better because of their technical skill set. But all of our employees, we hire on personality, because I can always train you on everything else. Next, always market yourself. So right now, if you do decide that you're going to go into technology, and as soon as you sign up with New Horizons and you're like taking your classes, post that on your social media, post that on your LinkedIn. Again, you want to start dropping those seeds, because as soon as you're done with the program, you're going to want to now say, all right, I'm ready. I'm ready for this career change. Who's going to hire me? And if nobody knows you, nobody's going to hire you. And always be learning. Always challenge yourself to be more. One of the questions I always ask when I'm doing an interview is, what project are you working on? What technology project are you working on? If I'm hiring someone in IT and they don't have a cloud computer, or they don't have like a test environment at home where they're just trickling with stuff, how much do you really love technology? So challenge yourself, because with technology, it's not like, nothing against plumbers. We all need plumbers. We all love plumbers. But, for the most part, water comes down, right? Water streams down. But with technology, it's always changing. You can't just learn something and then just think in 10 years, it's going to be the same thing. No, that'll kind of be like a frog in that boiling water. Before you know it, you yourself are obsolete, because technology has surpassed you. So always be learning, because the more you learn, the more value you're going to be offering to your